Hi everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. A bitch is back talking about books. It has been so long since I have read a book, done a video on a book, and just overall been on YouTube. I've just been in the biggest slump, and I really thought that the book I'm going to talk about today was going to get me out of the slump. Let me tell you right now, it did not do the job. Spoiler alert, I did not really vibe with this book or really like this book. It just had a lot of setup that didn't have a lot of payoff. To me personally, it was just such a big disappointment for me. The book that I am talking about is Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. If you guys know me and know my channel, I literally have like every single Ali Hazelwood book up there. She, for me, is an insta-read author. The thing about her is that when you go into it, you know the type of writing style you're gonna get. You know it's gonna have a lot of banter, a lot of cringy moments, a lot of pining men built like refrigerators who are dark and brooding and don't talk that much, that are utterly obsessed with the girl in the book. If you are a reader that loves pining, is so into having a guy simp after a girl who's really smart and educated, then you will love Ali Hazelwood. If you like that sort of cringy rom-com type of thing, you will love Ali Hazelwood, and she was an insta-read author for me. I would say she still is, because right now I assume she's in her experimental era. In recent years, she's released fantasy, romantasy books, Omega-verse books. She's released young adult books, but where she started out was her adult romantic comedies, contemporary ones about women in STEM. And they were also not necessarily smut books. They weren't super smutty. It wasn't erotica. It just had one scene towards the very end of the book, like most romances do. This, I would say, is Ali Hazelwood's first step into sports romance, college sports romance. We follow two people that are on the diving and swimming teams. He is swim captain, world champion, all-around aquatics golden boy, Luke Blomquist, I think is how you say his name, and he's a swimmer. The main woman in this book is Scarlett Vandermeer, and she is a diver. They are on the aquatics team at Stanford. It is also Ali Hazelwood's her second step, I'd say, into more erotic romances, where takes on a majority of the plot. Just by knowing who Ali Hazelwood is and knowing where she started, knowing what she is strong at writing, I think that was a big detriment as to why I didn't really like this book as much. I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars. I think her biggest weakness when it comes to her writing style is the way that she writes intimate scenes and the way she writes scenes. I talked about this in my review of Not in Love. That was her first real step into writing true erotic romance. I don't know if it's super erotic, but it just had a lot of scenes throughout the book as opposed to just one. It was a more spicy book. This one has like 6 or 7 or 8 spicy scenes in there. Having scenes be the least strong in her writing style, but having it as the majority of this book and her really making those a big part of the plot, that for me is the reason why the book didn't really work for me. I should have really seen that from the beginning. So let's get into it. If you've never read Deep End, what is it about? It, like I said, follows 2 college students that go to Stanford. Lucas is on the swimming team, Scarlett is on the diving team, and Lucas has a longtime girlfriend. The longtime girlfriend, her name is Pen/Penelope. Penelope is on the diving team with Scarlett. Lucas and Pen are a long-time boyfriend-girlfriend. And this is where I was like, I don't really know if I like this book, because I just felt like the plot was so convoluted and the way that they were trying to justify the actions that were happening morally for me and my friends and my friend group, no matter how you want to spin it. The situation that this book starts off on just feels like such a weird dynamic. I just would never get with my friend's ex. You wouldn't even be attracted to your friend's ex. And the fact of the matter is that in this book, the way it starts off is that Lucas and Penelope are together and they break up because they have not a really good sex life. Because Lucas is into more BDSM type things, or he's into more kinky things and being more of a dominant person in the bedroom. Penelope is not. And they talked about it pretty openly to a point where Scarlett could hear this conversation. Scarlett herself, she likes to take a more submissive role in the bedroom. Scarlett and Penelope are friends. they're not super close, but they are colleagues. They are on the same diving team. And the whole premise of the story was that the reason why Lucas and Penelope broke up is because they have not a really good life. They're into different things in the bedroom. They break up. Scarlett overhears this. Scarlett then has a conversation with Penelope. Awkward conversation, mind you. Like, this is in the very beginning of the book. How do you just naturally, with someone who is just your colleague, okay, just naturally stumble upon this conversation? That's one. And then proceed to talk to someone you're not that super close to. Like, at this point in the book, in the very beginning of the book, Penelope and Scarlett are not besties yet. They are colleagues, they are friends, they are classmates, but they are not super, super close with each other. Scarlett then inserts herself and says, hey, Penelope, don't feel bad about you and Lucas breaking up. If you want help in the bedroom, I am sort of into the same things that Lucas is into, but in the opposite way. He likes to be the one in control in the bedroom, the more dominant version in the bedroom. I like to be a more submissive person in the bedroom. Penelope and Scarlett have this whole conversation, and it just, the dialogue was not flowing smoothly for me. The circumstances didn't really make sense how they could get to that point within the first 40 pages of the book. But that's how the book started out. Then 40 pages later, Penelope and Lucas are broken up. Penelope is already finding other eye candy, and they're at a party and they're drunk. Penelope decides to be like, hey, you know what? And it's so predictable. Honestly, it's really just the entire book felt so predictable to me. So that was another flaw that I found in the book and why I just kind of checked out of the book halfway through. But it was so predictable that Penelope gets super drunk and was like, hey, you know what would be a really good idea? Me and Lucas, like, we're broken up. We're not getting back together. You should hook up with Lucas. Like, you should hook up with my ex. And Scarlett was like, oh, girl, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, that's crazy. I would never do that. And then next thing you know, they end up doing it, right? And they end up having Lucas and Scarlett feel a little bit of tension, and they have this agreement of writing down all the things that they're into. And apparently, what's written on the paper, we don't see what's on this paper of kinky shit. Whatever's on that paper is really kinky shit. This is how their relationship dynamic starts out. They switch papers and is like reading what each other are into. And as the book goes on, I feel like it lost its footing. They talked about all of this kinky stuff that they were both really into. And it ended up being the most vanilla sex that I have ever read in my life. Not to say that there is a right or a wrong way to do anything. And not to say that I know anything about the dynamics of BDSM, of a dominant person and a submissive person in the bedroom. But I know that what I read in here was the most vanilla shit I've read in a long time. All of the sex scenes were boring, were not detailed, and did not show anything remotely kinky for the most part. Like, what happened to the entire, like, they didn't do anything in that apparently long list of things that both of them were into throughout the book. Lucas being a little bit more controlling in the bedroom. I did see that, but other than that, there was nothing else to suggest that there was this long list of reasons why Lucas and Penelope didn't work out in the bedroom, because he was just so kinky and she was not into it at all. If that is the big deal breaker, can you at least make the sex really kinky so that we understand why Penelope and Lucas broke up to begin with? Because it seems like they're just having regular schmegular sex. Anyway, that was my long tangent on that. Long story long, I did not really vibe with this book, and by the time I got halfway through with it, I checked out. I really did check out. I could see how Ali Hazelwood was really trying to make these characters fully realized in the way that they talked about their past traumas, the things that they've gone through. I think Scarlett, for sure, was a stronger character and had a lot more development than Lucas did. Lucas kind of went into the backstory, his mom, and the things that he went through in high school and his past, how Penelope helped him out of that. Scarlett had an injury that was career altering for her as a professional diver, and it really traumatized her from wanting to do certain dives again. And it goes through the whole mental turmoil to physically be able to do something, but mentally you're just not able to. there's something holding you back. There's that anxiety of something happening, about an athlete not feeling in control of their body. I did like that. I liked that stuff about it. I just think that the book also became really repetitive. There's so many, okay, we went to practice, we went to the swim meet, and then she's at her therapist's office, and it's a recycle of that. And by the time I got halfway through, I was kind of over it, and I didn't really vibe with the Penelope Lucas Scarlett dynamic at all. And I hated that they made it seem like it was so okay, that Penelope was so okay with Lucas and Scarlett being together. And of course, by the third act conflict, because there has to be a third act conflict, right? Penelope all of a sudden is so heated that Lucas and Scarlett are together. And it was just such an obvious third act conflict. They made it seem like it was a non-issue, that Penelope was gonna be a non-issue throughout the story. And then right when it was convenient, it turned into an issue again. And I understand that in the circumstances of everything that was happening in that scene, in the heat of the moment, Penelope lashed out at Scarlett. That's when everything sort of blew up. It was just such an obvious conflict that was gonna build up, and it didn't really make me feel great about the dynamic of all three of them in this situation. And then on top of that, they had this sort of epilogue ending where Penelope was besties with Lucas and Scarlett, and they were, all three of them just lived happily ever after. I don't know, it was just really weird. To be honest, the dynamic of the three of them felt like how a lot of people feel about the pregnancy trope. Unexpected pregnancy happens in a book and they are immediately turned off by it. I think the dynamic of this situation just immediately turned me off from the book as a whole. So to be honest, as a person who tries to rate and review the books that she reads in a light that, but I really think that because of this dynamic, it just influenced me to see more of the negatives than the positives. I would say that was the biggest positive. The biggest positive was the things they talked about being an athlete and how your mental health can be affected by that. Everything else, I did not like the intimate scenes in here. I did not like the relationship dynamics. I also felt like Lucas and Scarlett as a relationship, there wasn't enough holding them together outside of the sex scenes, and even in the intimate scenes, there wasn't enough holding their relationship together that I felt like they were meant for each other, that I really felt that there was even chemistry between the two of them. I didn't feel any chemistry for these characters at all. Another thing I just really didn't like about the book, and I know I'm such a hypocrite, because I say this is something that I actually really like about Ellie Hazelwood, is that the way she writes is kind of cringy. I actually really like that because we're reading a romantic comedy. I mean, actually, I don't know if this is a romantic comedy, but her first three books were, right? If you're gonna have comedic moments, of course, I am a big proponent in cringy writing, in cringy scenes. I actually think when it comes to comedy, having secondhand embarrassment and cringy moments and moments of stupidity and moments that just don't make sense are just so awkward and like, oh, like I cannot believe that just happened. Make for the best books, because that is where the comedy is. That is where the lightheartedness comes from, right? And Ellie Hazelwood is really good at making those moments, is really good at giving you secondhand embarrassment, is really good at making you cringe. You could really see that with her first book, The Love Hypothesis. You can really see it when you watch something like a Korean drama. In a lot of Korean dramas that are romances, they are so cringy and they're doing such over-the-top dramatic, embarrassing things. But I'm not saying that like it's a bad thing. I'm saying that like it's a good thing. It's part of the tone of the story and it makes the story move forward and everything, right? But this book just was a little bit too cringy. Everything in this book did not flow out of the mouth naturally. And a lot of the things that they talked about, it felt like they were speaking so clinically about emotions, about relationships, about relationship dynamics. And I understand that communication, especially when it comes to things like sex or BDSM, you should communicate these things. And they literally write a list of all the things that they want to experiment with. What are their limits? What are the things that it is a for sure no-go, like you should not do this? I 100% think that you should communicate these things. They need to be talked about, and I really like that they talked about it in this book. However, I just think that the dialogue and the way they talked about it was so clinical, it didn't even feel like two people having a conversation. And it also, this conversation drags on for so long. They talk about this written contract for chapters. They spend 5 or 6 chapters saying, you should read the list of things that I want to do to you, and vice versa. And they just talk about it for 6 chapters saying, you should read it. You should read this list. You should read that. And they're saying, no, I'm so scared. I don't want to read it. Can you just read it? And rather than have 5 or 6 chapters going through the back and forth of, I should read it. No, I'm not going to read it. I should let him read it. No, I'm not going to read it. Instead of the back and forth of that, why don't we have 5 or 6 chapters actually communicating what they actually want and talking about their boundaries, instead of being so scared to just show them what their boundaries are? Overall, this book, 2 out of 5 stars, okay? It just dragged. I can go on and on about it. I quite honestly paid attention to 80% of the book, maybe 90%, because I was skimming stuff towards the end. I was just like, I want it to be over. I want it to be over. But yeah, overall, this book just drags. They have non-penetrative sex once. Okay? Once. The first time. And he freaks out. Lucas freaks out because he likes control and he didn't have control with her, and he got scared and psyched out, and he just wanted to see if he could ghost her, just to see if he could do it, because he needs to have control in everything, which they say in the book is an asshole move. But I'm like, we really wasted 3 chapters on the fact of this, of him ghosting her, and this back and forth of if they and won't they, when you know that they will. But it's not even a pining sort of if they won't they. It just felt so like, oh, he didn't call me. I guess he doesn't want to see me anymore. That kind of really hurt my feelings. Like, we only did it once. It comes out that he's like, yeah, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. And I'm like, what was that even all for? I don't know, okay? And the issue of Penn coming back and forth, like Penn being so okay with them, with Lucas and Scarlett being together, and then Scarlett being so psyched out, like, oh my god, what about Penn? Like, anytime an issue had to be an issue, anytime the book started getting a little bit slow, they just brought that up again. Oh, like, things are going well, what about Penn? And then things are going well, what about Penn? Create a little bit different conflict, more conflict, or just get rid of this dynamic altogether. At the end of the book, we're 50 pages to the end. This is what I wrote on my notes app. At this point, Lucas is so sure about Scarlett. Lucas wants to be with Scarlett. Can't face the fact that, but Scarlett cannot face the fact that she loves Lucas. And Lucas is so sure of her. At this point, I'm checked out as a reader. Can you guys just get together or not? Like, I really do not care about this couple at all. Just get together already. We know you are going to. Of course. Like, if you liked this book at all, I'm really happy for you and I'm really glad for you, and I don't want you to feel bad that I didn't like it, okay? I think it is a me issue. I think you could read this book and quite possibly fall in love with it. It might be your favorite Ali Hazelwood book. You never know. And I don't want my opinion of the book to deter you from reading it and maybe liking it yourself, because this might be a singular issue. This might be an issue with just me, that I didn't like it, that I was checked out of it. It might be because I was in a huge reading slump before this, and maybe I had high expectations about it and it didn't meet those expectations. It might be because of my reading slump that I wasn't really in the mood to read, and when I was reading it, I wasn't really fully in it and fully invested like I usually am. Also, the story is 450 pages long, and most romances are 350 pages. It felt a little bit longer than most romance books. This is almost a 500-page book. And a lot of the smut scenes, to me, were unmemorable. Maybe they might be memorable for you. Maybe this is the first smutty book that you will ever read, and you really fall in love with these characters, fall in love with what they go through. Maybe you're an athlete and you find the things that they're talking about relatable. For me, it didn't do any of that. And I'm really sorry to say it, but I would love to know if you have read this book, if you loved it. I want to know why. I would love to talk about it and read your comments below about how you felt about this book, if you loved it, if you hated it. I just find those things really interesting because books are subjective, opinions are subjective, everybody is different, everybody is going to like certain things or dislike certain things, and just me personally, I didn't really vibe with it. It wasn't doing what it needed to do for me as a reader, and that is why I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars. So thank you so much for watching this video. Please, if you've read this book, let me know your thoughts. I love you guys so much, and hopefully pray for me that I will catch you very soon in the next one.